What's good, people? Agent Juice reporting for duty. Today's video, which is the last one of the year, by the way, is going to tell the tale of Princess Highground, created by one JERKDOUGLAS'S. It tells the tale of the titular character fighting the good fight by being a overbearing rich white girl ally, all in the name of defending the little people against her arch-rival, Trolly McDouch. With a name like that, man. And of course, Trolly McDouch's litany of politically incorrect misdeeds. As you can see, today Speedpaint pays homage to Princess Highground and Trolly McDouch, and also pays homage to a very specific scene and a very specific thing. It's one of those things that if you know it, you know it, and that's all I'm going to say about it. Let's just say that Princess Highground is about to get trolled. Princess Highground is a rather short-lived work that old Jerky Boy made quite a bit ago. I think the last update he did was a couple of years back, and the thing originated, I want to say, in like 2015? I don't have exact dates because he has since re-uploaded things, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint the exact point it came out. But despite its shortness, it has gained a special place in my heart, specifically because of Princess Highground herself. And the reason why is because I believe she's a stellar representation of a particularly insidious archetype, not only in fiction, but in the real world, especially nowadays. So what exactly is this archetype? Well, let us first buckle into our favorite castle, even though a castle is never really shown in the comic, but she's a princess, so we're going to assume that there's a castle. Let us pal around with well-chosen, diverse friends. Let us get smacked by our abusive, religious extremist boyfriend, much in the same way he smacks the sacred buttons. And let's dive into Princess Highground.
Phrasing, boom! Inappropriate.
Okay, the archetype. What is Princess Highground's archetype? It's one of many, but it's a prominent one, and for the sake of this video, it is the wolf in sheep's clothing. You see, the thing about Princess Highground is that she feigns this sense of altruism and goodwill, not for the sake of actually helping others, but for the sake of her own image. Because her image is connected with being on top of the current cultural zeitgeist, by being seen as good in the eyes of what is popular or what is considered correct in the current culture. You can actually read through the entire comic, by the way, by going to JERKDOUGLAS'S PICZEL account. PICZEL was kind of the one of the go-to places that the Tumblr refugees fled when they banned the naughty things. But you can read pretty much all of the main comic, which consists of, I want to say, 17 or 18 pages. But the point is, if you look through these pages, you can see multiple examples of Princess Highground's insincere morality, which is an interesting little oxymoron. And this is exemplified quite clearly in the mainest continuing story in the short-run series, which is the first big clash between Princess Highground and her arch-rival Trolly McDouch. Now, Trolly McDouch has shown up before, but this is the first big clash that they have, where Princess Highground wants to, put old Trolly in his place once and for all. So of course she brings on her token black friend Lacey, who's in and of herself a kind of racial stereotype of being the sassy black woman. And of course Trolly, being a vicious little troll that he is, drops the N-bomb, causing poor old Lacey to burst into tears and befuddling our dear Princess Highground. But that's not the point. That's the setup. Okay, so Trolly McDouch said a racial epithet to a black woman of all things. Tisk tisk, right? So what does Princess Highground do? Well, she goes to one of her friends, Becky, and starts waxing poetic about how horrible the situation is. But I find what's really interesting, one of the big key components about what happens, is that there's a point where she says, like, oh, he didn't just say bad words, he said the N-word. And in front of an African American of all things, I could go to hell by proxy. That specific moment, I think, is brilliant because it shows where Princess Highground's actual desires and goals lie. It has nothing to do with Lacey, the sassy black woman's feelings about, how she's doing. We clearly see at the end of the previous comic that Trolly's racist little jab at her caused her to burst into literal tears. And if you kind of, back that up, you can think like, wow, that was an exceptionally cruel thing, because we all know that the N-bomb is particularly insidious, and there are plenty of black people who think that it is absolutely deplorable, and that is entirely their right to do so, because there are many more black people who don't even care. But right now, we are not concerned about the collective of blackness, which is what Princess Highground sees. Right now, we are concerned, or we should be, I should say, we should be concerned with an individual's feelings, which is Lacey. She has a name. Princess Highground doesn't even say her name. She said, an African American. Oh, because what's insulting to Princess Highground is not that Trolly McDouch said the N-bomb to my friend, and when she was inconsolable. No, it was, he violated the zeitgeist. And what's worse is that I was next to it, and thus I could go to hell by proxy, which means that my good moral sensibilities was being threatened. My status was being threatened. That is what Princess Highground cares about. And that's what makes her so brilliant, because she is not there to fight the good fight for the sake of others. She is there to virtue signal. And we can see it right there in that one little panel, and I'm harping on it so heavily because I consider it the single greatest moment in the entire 18 pages. And yes, it's a small work, so I can harp on a small part. The second lead up that really shows the true colors of Princess Highground is the continuation of this kerfuffle with Trolly McDouch, in that Princess Highground decides Trolly McDouch must die. And in order to seek the power to kill him, her friend Becky suggests, why don't you visit the nerdy sages on the Holy Mountain, right? And so she goes, and sure enough, she discovers these two stereotypical nerds who talk about Star Trek and whatnot. And during her talk with these guys, she's trying to feign this allyship with them, going like, oh yes, my constituents are nerds, and so naturally I like nerdy things, but of course the mask slips. She hates them, she thinks they're icky and beneath her and whatnot, and she hates their nerd talk. But of course, these sagely nerds don't buy into it. They see through her veneer. She is nothing more than a poser, for she was once a bully to them. And that kind of really shows the second half of this wolf in sheep's clothing that Princess Highground is. To kind of wrap up the quick story of the sages, it comes to the point where, she wants power to kill Trolly, but they will not grant her power because she's clearly selfish. And so she tries to kind of brush off their unwillingness to help her as like, oh, you support injustice and bigotry. And of course, they snap back with that whole, speak not of the old magics to me, which I was there when it was written, because they're saying like, back in the day, we were the downtrodden, we were the nerds, we were the outcasts. Back in the day, you, the popular pretty girl, insulted us and bullied us. And now that the culture has changed, and virtue signaling is now the key to power as opposed to bullying the lessers, you have seized upon that key to power, not because you are a good person, but because you want to keep your status as a princess. And of course, once again, the mask brilliantly slips off of Princess Highground as she basically backtalks him and says, don't say that to me. I am the moral arbiter of all morality. Actually, I have the real quote. What does she actually say? She says, I am the moral compass in all things. Okay, same thing. But I just wanted to get that quote right. But the point is that she thinks herself as the center of all things that are good and bad, because she is the one who's supposed to be holding the keys to power. It's all about power. It is not about truth, it is about power. Princess Highground is a great character because she actually exists in this world. Not literally, obviously, but people like her absolutely exist in this world. A long time ago, well over a year ago, I made a video called 30 Lessons I Learned Turning 30. And one of these lessons, I talked about the concept of the sword at my front versus the knife in my back. And I'll just put the clip here so you can hear what I said. In life, there is the sword at your front and the knife at your back. What I mean by this is, let's use an extreme example. Out there is white supremacists who hate me because I'm a brown man. But I don't really mind that because I understand that they hate me for irrational reasons, and they are the sword at my front. I can draw my blade and face them head on because I know it. However, the knife at my back is more insidious. It's the people who smile and say, I'm your friend. Oh, I'm just there to help you. Don't mind me as I undermine everything in your life, and I stab you in the back. That is the knife at your back. And unfortunately, niceness, the fake smile, is a great smokescreen to hide that insidious nature. Basically, I classify Princess Highground as the knife in my back, because she doesn't care about people like me. She only wants to use people like me. And that is incredibly insulting in ways much more dangerous than just saying to my face something insulting. I don't have to worry about looking over my shoulder of people, whispering sweet nothings and insidious lies into my ear. And there was another thing I remember reading. I can't remember who said it. It was like a Twitter post. But the paraphrase is that the person was saying, understand that the bullies never went away. Their tactics merely changed. Princess Highground, back in the 90s, would have been a pearl-clutching fundamentalist Christian, a satanic panic busybody, because that was the source of power. In the 2000s, she would have been a nerd-bullying, insulting mean girl, right? Because that was the source of power. Now, the source of power is to weaponize quote-unquote good faith and quote-unquote helping others, the virtue signal, if you will, for the sake of power. I know that old jerky boy created Princess Highground as kind of a cute little nudge at the cultural zeitgeist at the time that's still pervading right now. And, he has since moved on to his own little things and he does his own little artwork projects, but I will always appreciate him for creating Princess Highground, because so far, she as a singular character is probably one of the best representations I have seen of the current problem of today, of the person who wields power by any means necessary, and that includes weaponizing good faith. She is the true wolf in sheep's clothing. She is the true knife at my back. And for that, I think we all should applaud old Jerk Douglas for making such a great character. And if you're listening to this video, old jerky boy, right now, I do hope that maybe one day you can continue the comic. I mean, do your own thing, but I would love to see more of this, because it's such a brilliant breakdown of a character archetype that is just fun to read about and watch. And so I think I'll go ahead and wrap it up there for today and for the year. So I thank you all for sticking around this whole year watching me so far. If you want to go ahead and stalk me elsewhere on the interwebs, of course, I'll go ahead and leave up my links here up on the screen. And of course, comment down below. I love to hear your thoughts about, Princess Highground or comics in general or cartoons or whatever. And so with all that said, I greatly thank you for spending this year with me. I do hope you stick around into the next year. And until next time, peasants, know your place and deuces.